Hello and welcome to day 21 of my 30-day 3 modeling challenge. Today's model, albeit quite simple actually, but quite boring and mundane, took a little longer than I hoped. Well, not that I hoped, that I anticipated. Or a few nitpickings by the end. Today I rolled a outlet, and the reason why I'm taking so long to pick one, staring most of the start of the video to just stare into my audio monitor, that's because I'm sitting there picking out one reference picture that's like good enough, you know. It's an outlet. They all look kind of boring. And I really wanted to find a nice reference picture that has enough detail for it to pass as a acceptable outlet, power outlet, or a socket, I think they're called as well. This is an EU one. I've already made an American EU socket, no, an American power outlet for the game that I'm working on. But this time I went for a standard European. I think it was way easier than making the American one. The American one is just like the metric system. It's filled with weird, seemingly unnecessary details and inconsistencies. Did I say the metric system? I meant the imperial system. That's the one I mean. That's what I mean by inconsistency. It's largely inconsistent when measuring things. I don't understand how people can prefer that over the metric system. It's just very logical and intuitive, maybe. I bet there are some uses for it that make it better than the metric system, but I don't. In everyday life, I think the metric system is better. This will end up being a very low poly mesh because I started out making it low poly, and I realized afterwards that it's way harder to increase the resolution of the mesh, increase the amount of geometry on it with a subdivision modifier too late into the process. Like it just becomes a huge mess that's like harder to work with, and it's never gonna be perfect. So note to self: if you want to make a higher resolution model, turn on the subdivision modifier at the beginning and then try to make it look as close to the reference as possible, because here I'm attempting to increase the resolution. I'm adding loop cuts where there shouldn't be loop cuts. I'm just worsening the topology of it all, just for the sake of making it a little bit less blocky. But eventually I gave up because it doesn't matter that much in this case. But for the future reference, when next time if I get a very simple, straightforward, boring mesh like this again, I will attempt to make it way more higher resolution as a challenge to myself, and make sure to get it right from the start and not add the subdivision modifier afterwards, which will just end up breaking the mesh. So that's a good note to self to have. That's one big takeaway I've had from making this mesh, because it shouldn't take this long. It's a very simple shape, and it's I'm kind of surprised that the whole there was also a bit back and forth between Blender and Substance Painter, because some faces, some geometry ended up not looking good because of lack of geometry. But I'm surprised the whole thing took about... Oh fuck, I have so many videos here. The first was 19... About... Yeah, a little bit over 1 hour and maybe 20 minutes or so, or 10. Let me just calculate this real quick. I want to know the exact number. Let's see. Plus 33 plus 44 plus 1 plus 2 plus n plus... Yeah, so a little bit over an hour and 10 minutes from start to finish. And but when you work on a mesh for that long, I think it's a good opportunity to just take it slow and try and start to and try to reflect on the actions that you make, and the consequences of not applying for instance, not applying the subdivision modifier in time, and work with that. Hard surface modeling 101, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an expert, so I'm neither an expert nor a professional. So this is something I'm just doing for myself. And if someone finds any sort of enjoyment out of this, watching this process fall out, then that makes me happy. If you watch any of these videos and you find anything enjoyable at all, please remember to subscribe and maybe show it off to someone who may seem interested in this. I don't know. Other failed game devs that maybe feel like they have some sort of imposter syndrome, that want to feel better about themselves by watching me fail and learn from my mistakes. Yeah, so here I'm just really working back and forth with the goddamn fucking UV unwrapping. This also took quite a long time because I wasn't really... Yeah, as you can see, the some parts were not properly cut. See, there it is. There's like one edge missing. One edge cut missing. But you know, it is part of the process to just cut and modify and move around all the UV islands. It also took some time to, assemble it in a way that was more in line with how the structure of the mesh is. All the islands that are in relation to each other, put those close together, and so on and so forth, so that it doesn't end up looking too weird. I should triangulate my meshes. That's another thing I really haven't... I don't think I've done it once in this series. You have to make sure to triangulate every mesh that you finish, because that is another reason why some faces may end up looking squiggly or warped, because there is missing geometry in it. There might be like some stretching in the material or tearing or something like that. And that's why you want to triangulate the mesh, which is just asking the engine to make one edge cut across every four-vertex face. I think it's just every square. Every quad gets a line drawn over it, and that actually makes the whole mesh look more natural. I guess it kind of like evenly distributes the tension of the geometry or something like that. But it's actually generally a rule of thumb, especially when you're like making a game asset or something, that's not gonna look good. If a non-triangulated mesh is not gonna look good in any game engine. It's gonna become you're gonna have like artifacts, shading artifacts, and the shading is not gonna bounce off well. It's not gonna distribute across the material as intended. One reason why I tend to forget to do that is because I never do that in Blender. I usually do the triangulation process once I've finished the material, and then I just export a triangulated version of the mesh from Substance Painter. Just because, it's because when you import a mesh into Substance Painter, the polygon fill is easier to deal with. It's easier to use the polygon fill when all of the faces of the mesh are just squares, as opposed to every single square having one line drawn over it, one edge drawn across it, and it's just a bunch of triangles. That sort of increases the margin for error, but maybe it won't do that much of a difference, so I'm gonna have to experiment a little bit with that. But generally I tend to do the triangulation after making the mesh, but maybe you shouldn't. Maybe that's like a bad thing to do. I don't know. I'm certainly gonna look into that more. Yeah, so now that this is the first attempt out of 3 at making the material, because I realized that there's some weird at first I think it's the bolt in the center of the outlet that is like it's too geometrical, it's too sharp. See? It's like it has the flat shader on, and it doesn't really look good when it's like a bolt that's supposed to have a rounded surface, a soft rounded surface. So I realized I wanted to fix that, so I eventually go back to Blender, fix it up real quick. Yeah, see, it's like it has these sharp lines around it, so I go back to Blender, and at first I try to separate it to apply the smooth shading on it, like that. But then I can't just join it together with the other meshes without the smoothness getting applied to the rest of the mesh. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. And then I re-imported it to Substance Painter, and as you can see, there's a ton of warping because of the smooth shading modifier, I think. And that does not look good at all. See, it looks like shit. And I'm like, why does it look like that? It is because of the missing geometry. But this doesn't matter if there is a flat. If it's a flat shader, which is what I should have kept on. But the flat shader doesn't really work on the bolt, so the compromise ended up being just me making the bolt part less blocky, as I'm attempting to do here. So yeah, I just round it up just a little bit more. Yeah, and now it looks fine. So there, the 3 attempts, three back and forths between Substance Painter and Blender. But this time it's like, thankfully it's a very simple material. It's just 3 materials. It's just the white plastic cover and the dark innards, the holes, the hole parts, and also the metal, the bolt and the little metal tongues or whatever they called on the sides. Up. But yeah, it is clearly a very blocky material, and oh god, I think, yeah, I lost the I actually, there is actually enough vertices along the circles, the big circles, that to make it a little bit more soft, but I completely forgot to apply that, so it did not have to look that blocky all over it. So now I can see that there was I could have saved it a bit more. But oh well, it is what it is. Now I know. Yeah, I didn't put too much effort into the bolt. I feel like that could have looked a little bit better, but it's okay. It's fine. So there you go, the European power outlet. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.